Good evening and welcome to tonight's telephone town hall with Sandy Hook Promise. My name is Ann and I'll be the moderator for tonight's event. We're going to begin in just a moment and we're excited to have you join us tonight. Before we begin, a few quick points to make. Right now, we're in the process of dialing out to thousands of people, so just stay on the line and we'll be hearing from Sandy Hook Promise parents about how we can come together to help prevent gun violence in Ohio, not by focusing on guns, but by beginning to have thoughtful conversations with our kids and within our communities. Also, we want to hear from you. If you would like to ask a question of our speakers, please press 0 on your telephone keypad and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. Again, press 0 to ask a question. If you've just joined us, good evening and welcome to tonight's telephone town hall with Sandy Hook Promise. I'm Ann and I'll be the moderator for tonight's call. We're going to begin in just a moment. Thanks for joining us. Right now, we're in the process of dialing out to thousands of people, so stay on the line. We'll hear from Sandy Hook Promise parents about how we can come together to help prevent gun violence and protect children in Ohio without focusing on guns. If you want to ask a question of our speakers, please press 0 at any time during this call. Again, press 0 at any time to ask a question. And at any time, please go to www.promiseday.org to sign up to take part in Promise Day, a special day of action on November 14th. And now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, Nicole Hockley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Hockley, and my son Dylan was killed at the age of 6 in his first grade classroom at Sandy Hook Elementary. I'm now one of the leaders of a group called Sandy Hook Promise, formed by community members and adults who lost children and spouses at the tragedy on 12/14. Sandy Hook Promise is a moderate, non-political group with a mission to protect children from gun violence. Before Dylan was killed, I knew nothing about the scale of gun violence in America. But since then, I've learned that there are so many parents who are affected by this same gun violence. On average, 52 children and teens are shot every day in this country, and within that, 7 children and teens are killed every day. And that's just kids and teens. It doesn't include the number of adults killed or injured. And that violence isn't just in our cities and urban communities. That's in our suburban and rural communities, too. In fact, I bet there are people on the line right now who have experienced gun violence in their lives, either personally or through a friend or neighbor. So let's find out. For our first question tonight, can you let us know if you've been touched by gun violence in your life? If you could press 1 if you have personal experience of gun violence or know someone else who has, including death or injury, or press 2 if you or anyone you know has never experienced any form of gun violence. We all need to understand what we can do to prevent gun violence so that no more families have to suffer the way mine has. We at Sandy Hook Promise believe there's been too much focus on the gun and not enough focus on the days, weeks, and even years before a tragedy takes place. We believe that for real prevention, solutions lie in finding what can be done to prevent an individual from getting to the point where they make a decision to use a weapon to harm themselves or someone else. So what we need to do is to get parents and caregivers to focus on what will protect our kids by taking meaningful actions in our communities, including recognizing the signs of someone who needs help and making an appropriate intervention, supporting and looking out for each other, and being excellent role models. Sandy Hook Promise has programs and tools to deliver this, focused in the areas of mental health and wellness, social development, community connectedness, and firearm safety and access.
Thanks, Nicole. And just a quick reminder to those of you participating this evening, one of the first questions we have for you is what your experience is with gun violence. So please press 1 if you have personal experience of gun violence, including death or injury, or press 2 if you or anyone you know has never experienced any form of gun violence. Again, a quick reminder, if you want to ask a question of our speakers, just press 0 on your telephone keypad at any time. So Nicole, as we're taking these answers to that question, so far of everyone that's answered that question, 69% have not experienced gun violence and 31% have experienced gun violence in their life. 31% is a pretty big number.
That is big a number.
But even if you haven't had a personal experience, we're interested in hearing more about what your concerns are about gun violence. So we'd like to ask you that question now. Press 1 if it's the possibility of in-home accidental shootings. Press 2 if it's protecting your children from being shot or killed at school or in a public place. Press 3 if you feel hopeless and helpless about being able to do something to prevent gun violence. Press 4 if you believe that gun violence is inevitable and part of our American culture. Or press 5 if you don't think gun violence is a problem in your community. We're excited about working together to take concrete, simple steps to prevent gun violence, and we're launching our first Promise Day on November 14th as a day of action across the country. Go to www.promiseday.org to be part of the solution. And now I'd like to go to the phones and take our first question. Ernest from Vermilion, we have you on the line. What's your question?
They always complain about guns being the root of all evil. It's not. It's the people. And regardless of what you say or what you do, the judges have the last say. So, if they get let off scot-free, what's to prevent them from doing it again or buying more guns? Just like the mother that bought the guns that kid used to kill all the school kids. Now, who's responsible? She is, because he was a nut.
Okay, thanks for your question, Ernest. Does anyone want to take that?
This is Tim Akers. I'm the Executive Director at Sandy Hook Promise. I think what we're discussing tonight, what we think is a solution, is to actually prevent people from ever getting to that point, from focusing on preventative programs around mental health and mental wellness, around social development, around community connectedness, things that you can do that can stop someone from ever even getting to the point of picking a gun up, having to get in front of a judge and do those other things, Ernest, that you talked to. That's what our organization is about. That's how we feel we can prevent people from picking up guns and doing something harmful to themselves or others.
Thanks, Tim. I did want to report back on the results of that last question. It looks to me like most of the folks on the call, a good majority, are really concerned about gun violence. Only a little over 10% of you feel hopeless and helpless or believe that it's inevitable. And so that's good because we share that belief, and we know that if we work together, we really can prevent gun violence. 42% of you fear the possibility of accidental shootings in your home, and 14% are concerned about protecting your children from being shot or killed. So that's a lot of folks who are concerned about gun violence, and we share that concern, and we're really excited to talk about what the solutions are. And I want to take a minute now to introduce our next speaker, Mark Barden, who can speak a little bit to some of those solutions.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Mark Barden. My son Daniel was killed in his first grade classroom at Sandy Hook Elementary when he was only 7 years old. I have two other wonderful children, James and Natalie, but Daniel was certainly special. His ability to reach out and include others is what drives me on this mission, to make sure no other families have to suffer through this pain and loss. Here at Sandy Hook Promise, we are putting the finishing touches on many community-based tools and programs to help protect kids from gun violence. One example of a very promising program in early demand by parents and schools is our Good Bystander program, currently called Say Something. What is Say Something? The Say Something program teaches young people and adults that when you see or hear someone talking about hurting or killing themselves or others, you say something. You speak up. We will teach kids and adults how to understand and know the signs. I know this program will work and understand why there is such an early demand for it. Even without a formal program in place, many plans for shootings are already being averted. In fact, my own 16-year-old niece, Mariah, reported a suspicious photo she saw on Instagram that turned out to be a serious threat. Mariah reported what she saw online from Maryland and intervened in a potential school shooting in Arkansas. Imagine when thousands of people are educated to recognize the signs and say something. Perhaps we can put an end to the 86 and counting school shootings since Sandy Hook, as well as the senseless everyday shootings that take place in lives everywhere.
Thanks, Mark. And I want to remind everyone, press 0 if you'd like to ask a question. We'd like to invite you to participate in the first Sandy Hook Promise Day. Promise Day is a day where we ask people around the country to do one small thing to tell their family, friends, and neighbors that they're concerned about gun violence and want to do something about it. This November 14th, we'll be holding the first National Promise Day where people around the country will organize conversations in their homes to talk about their concerns about gun violence and share their commitment to take the first step, to talk to the children and teens in their lives about being a good bystander and say something. We'll give you detailed information about how to do this, and you won't be alone. Thousands of people around the country and in your own community will be joining you virtually. We need more people like Mark's niece Mariah to help us prevent gun violence in Ohio. Will you be willing to have a conversation with a child or teenager in your life about how to help prevent gun violence in your community? Press 1 if you'll pledge to have a conversation with a child in your life on our upcoming Promise Day on November 14th. And press 2 if you would like more information first. And now I'd like to take another question from the audience. Mike from Columbus, you're on the line. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. How many people are on the call?
Well, we've called out to approximately 50,000 people in Ohio.
Okay, and how many are on this call right now listening, I guess is my question.
What's your question, Mike, about preventing gun violence?
Yes, my question is, I've heard much talk this evening on the call about gun violence. What is the organization's position just on violence, period? And why are we focusing on guns? Why is your discussion focused on guns rather than the other things I heard about mental health, community services, connectiveness? What does that have to do with guns? And why are we talking about gun violence? And what is the issue with guns?
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, Mike. This is Nicole, and I can answer your question. The programs that we have focusing in the area of mental health and wellness and good bystander prevention, as well as community connectedness, will help prevent all violence, not just gun violence. Our particular interest is in reducing the number of incidents of gun violence in the country each year. That's around 500,000 acts of gun violence and active violence that includes a gun taking place every year with more than 30,000 deaths. And because we lost our children at Sandy Hook Elementary School as a result of a mentally unstable person with a gun, we're interested in all sides of the issue. But we believe that real prevention comes around those first areas that we spoke of: mental health and wellness, community connectedness, reaching out to people and including them and being good role models. And that will not just prevent gun violence, it will help prevent all violence. So we are taking a holistic approach.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. Let's take another call. This one, sorry, I'm sorry. We're going to move now to our third speaker, Tim Makris, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the solutions that Sandy Hook Promise is working on to prevent gun violence.
Good evening, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Tim Makris. I'm the Executive Director at Sandy Hook Promise. My son was at Sandy Hook School the day of the shooting. He was not harmed physically, but like about 300-plus other kids at that school, he most certainly continues to work through the events of the day. I believe that in order to prevent gun violence, we need to quit talking about the gun and start talking about those events that lead someone up to the point of picking up a gun. We need to implement and put into place actions at a community level that can make a real difference. We do not need to take guns away from people. We need to address why certain people pick up guns and use them to harm themselves or harm other folks. We do and have done a lot of research over the last year and have identified proven tools and programs in the space of mental health identification and intervention, social development and well-being, community connectedness, and as Mark mentioned, good bystander behavior. Now, Mark talked a lot about the bystander program, and about his niece. I'd like to share with you one other example of just how this program can work. In August, a 15-year-old student at a high school near Santa Clarita, California, was arrested after students and adults reported to a local sheriff that the student had posted photos of weapons and threats on his Instagram account. So yet another incident of good bystanders standing up and saying something at the right moment to avert a tragedy. Our goal is to give kids and adults the formal tools so that more people can interrupt and stop gun violence before it starts.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And we're going to need people like you to help us prevent gun violence in Ohio. Would you be willing to have a conversation with the child in your life, your son, your daughter, a young person that you know, about good bystander behavior? Press 1 if you'll pledge to have a conversation with your child or a child that you know in your life on our upcoming Promise Day on November 14th. And press 2 if you'd like more information. And now I'd like to open it up to the callers for another question. We do have a question from someone who wanted to know what is the organization's position on removing guns from individuals who are obeying the law?
Hi, this is Mark Barden. I'll answer that. We have no interest in removing a gun from someone who is obeying the law. If anything, we support responsible gun ownership and responsible gun use. As Tim just said, we want to identify and help folks in crisis before they ever pick up a gun. We want to try to implement programs that can guide people in the right direction and hopefully have services available that they can have access to that will help them before they ever get to the gun. We're trying to get to that place before the gun is even involved. And like Tim said, the best way to start, talking about saving lives from gun violence is to stop talking about the gun.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to go to Regina for a question about the role of parents in preventing gun violence. Regina, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. My heart goes out to you guys from Sandy Hook. I was wanting to ask the parents, have you ever checked your kids' book bags on a daily basis, their bedrooms? I mean, even if you have to tear up the bed and make it back yourself. Even your basement, your sheds that you keep your bikes and lawnmowers and things in that set in the backyard. I never had that problem with my children, but back then you never heard of gun shooting a lot. But today anything is possible, and so I have twin grandchildren. One's boy, one's a girl, and I do a periodic check when their mother is not here to check behind them because she works third shift. So I do a periodic check on them when she doesn't do it, and it really helped me a lot. Just even paperwork that I needed to read. So I'm totally against gun violence, but that was the question that I wanted to ask the parents.
Thanks, Regina.
Thanks, Regina. I'll answer that question for you. I absolutely agree with you that parents and grandparents and any adult or caregiver who has children in their life does have a role to play in helping prevent violence and help guide our children. We all need to be responsible and good role models, and that includes helping our kids when they need help, especially if they have any sort of mental wellness issue that they need additional support on, or teaching them how to recognize the signs of a potentially violent act and having the courage to stand up and say something about it. So I commend you on what you do for your grandchildren in looking after them and checking them, and hope that more parents continue to have that sort of responsible role in their children's lives. So thank you.
Now I'd like to hear from Kat in Dayton, Ohio. Kat, what's your question? Kat, are you there?
Hi.
Hi.
Hello?
Yeah,
I feel really bad about what happened to all your children. It was just a horrible tragedy in general. But I think they need to have more strict laws on people who they issue guns to, because kids can get them from their parents, take them to school without them even knowing. I'm a mother of 5. I have 1 child in school. I just want to keep my kids at home and homeschool them because of all the violence that's going on in school, not just gun violence, but the bullying and other issues. My oldest daughter keeps telling me, Mommy, this kid says this. Mommy, this kid says that. I talk to the teacher. They don't want to hear it. You know, that's just not a good situation for my children to be in, nor any other children. You approach the teacher and they brush you off, and that's just not something that I feel comfortable with as a parent. I think they need to do more mental evaluations on people they give guns to. Because it's not only kids that are going into the school and shooting people. There have been instances of older children, you know, teenagers and adults doing it, and that's a problem.
So, Kat, it sounds like you're asking about the role of mental health screenings and what that could do to help prevent gun violence. Does anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, Kat, this is Mark Barden. You know, you're touching on a whole lot of issues there. You know, one of which is, of course, safe storage. Parents and gun owners need to be responsible with how they store their firearms in their homes. So that their children don't have access to them, but also the screenings. You're right. You know, we say it's not the guns that kill people; it's the people. So we do need to be careful with who has access to firearms, and we need to be able to help the folks that are not suitable to own firearms.
Okay, and remember, if anyone else has a question for our speakers, press 0 on your keypad. And I want to, again, remind everyone that we would love to have you join us in working to prevent gun violence in Ohio. And one of the ways that you can do that is by participating in Promise Day, which is a special day of action that we'll be organizing starting on November 14th, in which we can help and support you taking simple action to talk with a young person in your life about how to prevent gun violence and share your concerns in your community. So if you would like to participate in Promise Day, press 1. And if you'd like more information before signing up, please press 2 on your telephone keypad. And I'd like to go to now a question from Andrew in Columbus. Andrew, what's your question? Andrew, are you there? Sounds like we've lost Andrew, but it does look like his question had to do with educating kids about guns and gun violence. Does Sandy Hook Promise have any suggestions for educating kids on gun violence and preventing gun violence?
Yeah, this is Tim. Many of our programs that we have involve educating kids on gun violence. So when we go in to speak to kids around social development and well-being, around community connectedness and involving kids within schools that are left by themselves, or any of the good bystander programs, we lead into any of those programs with some background and education around gun violence and what exactly it is. You know, criminal gun violence, violence due to suicide, etc. So it's very much part of what we do.
Great, and it looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with being able to unmute people on the line, but we do have another question from someone in Pitt City about mental health screenings and mental wellness and what Sandy Hook Promise proposes to do about the role of mental health and mental wellness as it relates to gun violence.
So part of the first program that we talked about around mental health identification and intervention is being able to train parents, educators, community leaders, frankly, anybody who comes in contact with young people on how to identify the signs and signals of someone who might be in a mental health crisis, or someone who may be lacking those mental wellness skills that can lead to move along a continuum, if you will, to becoming someone becoming violent. Now, to be clear with everybody on the phone, a very small percentage, less than 10% of people ever become violent or pick up a gun. But unfortunately, those people can have a significant impact in terms of what they can do from a violent point of view. So that's where we're doing a lot of our work in terms of identification and intervention. I believe that answers the question.
Great, thanks, Tim. And we had another caller who was calling to find out what programs besides online tools might Sandy Hook Promise suggest for communities and schools and community organizations to be a part of preventing gun violence?
Sure. There's a lot of programs that we're going to be communicating out over the next several months, and we're always looking for additional good evidence-based programs to add to our list and talk to people about. But in terms of organizations, it's not just about online tools and programs. There's going to be a lot of stuff that people can just download and deliver in their own home or around the kitchen table. But we're also going to be physically in communities helping work directly with organizations to implement some of these tools and programs. We've been spending a lot of time in Ohio since August, meeting with, I'd say about 60 different organizations, if not more so far, across the state. And we're actually talking to schools, we're talking to law enforcement, we're talking to YMCAs and YWCAs, Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, any sort of community organization that is interested in preventing violence within their community. And a lot of the programs that we have around training to identify the signs and signals for a person in mental health crisis and what to do. That's a face-to-face training program that we're implementing in Ohio. The social and emotional learning tools, again, are physical tools that can be used within a school community, and we'll be training interested schools on that. Working directly with law enforcement as well around crisis intervention, as well as the bystander program itself. So there's a multitude of programs, and we're happy to give more information to anyone who's interested in listening and hearing more and getting involved.
Thank you, Nicole. And now I wanted to go to James in Avon, who had some questions about what individuals can do to make changes. James, go ahead.
All right,
James?
hello.
Hi, there you are.
All right, just one quick question. Number one, when anybody purchases a gun, they should have the proper identification, my driver's license, whatever, to purchase a gun, correct?
Is that the question?
Is that your question, James?
Yes, it is.
Whoever is purchasing guns should follow whatever Ohio state laws are on purchasing a gun.
Well, I should show my identification and properly show it. And to people of Sandy Hook, I'm so sorry, but you got to remember, there's loose cannons. There's idiots out there. You know what I mean?
We do. So, James, it's why we're doing what we're doing. We want to stress again for you and other folks on the line, this is not about the gun. This is about talking to folks who need assistance and how you can identify them. How, if it does get to that point of someone doing something, how you can be a good bystander to interrupt it. What we believe in and what we support is not in taking guns away from people. That's just not realistic, and it's not needed. It's about how we can stop people from getting to that point. of picking up a gun and hurting themselves or others.
Great. Thanks, Tim. And now I'd like to go to Nicole in Columbus.
Well, Nicole, you're cutting me off?
Sorry? Nicole in Columbus, are you there?
I am. I'm here. I lost my son to gun violence almost a year ago. He was in 4th grade, and my question is about, I guess I understand Promise Day. I'm totally behind that concept. Are there plans to implement things like in the schools to the kids using local, incidents that have occurred, kind of like a DARE program is kind of what I understand the concept to be, in a sense? Is that kind of what the plan beyond Promise Day involves for each community in Ohio, or what exactly, I guess, past that is the implementation to be?
Hi, Nicole. First of all, this is Mark Barden, and I just want to say how sorry we are for your loss. That we're all having this conversation is so unfortunate. Thank you for being with us. So we have identified some programs that we'll be implementing in schools, such as programs that address social isolation, No Child Eats Alone, the kids that are isolated, the kids that sit by themselves that everybody kind of ignores. We want to kind of address that. We want to bring awareness about that and bring the tools and programs into schools where we can kind of start to rectify that part of it. And also what we mentioned before, good bystander behaviors for kids to look out for each other. And if they hear something, if they see something, to say something, to tell an adult, tell an authority. And then other programs around social and emotional learning, giving kids the tools that they need to cope, anger management skills, give them the tools to process what they need to get through so they don't turn to violent behavior.
Thanks, Mark. We want to take a moment to remind everyone, if you have a question for our speakers, please press 0 on your keypad. John in Columbus, what's your question?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
What's your question, John?
Yes. I hear that you are wanting to stop gun violence, and I'm all for that. But I was wondering how you want this to happen.
We think, hey, John, it's Tim. We think that gun violence prevention needs to start at a community level. It needs to start around the dinner table. It needs to start in houses of worship, in other community-based organizations, in schools and colleges, that the only way you're going to get to gun violence is for communities to and address the issue. And specifically addressing the issue around prevention and intervention. That's how we feel, frankly, is the best way to move forward to help begin to prevent gun violence.
Thanks, Tim. Now I'd like to go to Billy in Akron. Billy, what's your question?
Yes, good evening. Hello, Mark, Tim, and Nicole. I was at a meeting with your group here in Akron, Ohio, probably 4 weeks ago. Really enjoyed that meeting. And I work with a teen group. I have 100 teenagers. And, our focus is on anti-violence and anti-bullying. And I just would like you to tell the group how groups like ours of teenagers who facilitate other teenagers, some of the things that we can do to facilitate the points that the Sandy Hook Promise will be bringing. Now, we've already started on some of those points, but let's talk about some of the things that we can do as a youth organization to help with the Sandy Hook Promise.
Well, hi, Billy. Thank you for being with us in Akron. Thank you for being with us tonight. There are some great peer-to-peer mentoring programs out there that I think a teen group would probably be very effective at. And any of these other programs that reach kids in communities and schools, I think could be an effective tool for that group as well, as far as the social and emotional learning component hearing from an older peer or a mentor, or social isolation and issues as well. I think there's a lot because kids don't want to hear from adults. I mean, they're going to listen. It's going to resonate with peers or older kids. So I think there's a lot of room for you guys to do a lot of good.
Thanks. And now, Tricia, what's your question?
Hello?
Tricia? Hi, Tricia. We can hear you. Go ahead.
My question was this: how do you plan to stop people from getting guns when it's too easy for them to get them illegally? Like they'll go over state lines to get them illegally. And how can you stop someone from? You say you want to stop someone with mental issues from getting guns, but they might not have mental issues at the time that they get the guns. Their mental issues might develop after they buy the gun. There's no way you can.
Okay, so two questions there. The first one was around trafficking of guns and, someone buying perhaps, I think you were inferring buying something illegal. There it's just around policy and putting policy in place to help address that and stop that pipeline of guns coming in. That's not what we're here to talk about tonight, so that's just a quick answer for you. But with regards to someone who either has or hasn't bought a gun, how do you know if they have mental health issues? And it's exactly why we're talking to you tonight. Is you need to train people on how to recognize the signs and the signals. And I'll give you some great examples. If someone's having a heart attack, they give off signs and signals. And if you've ever gone through training, you've learned what those are, so you're able to act and do something. If someone's having a stroke, again, there are signs and signals. If there's someone exhibiting any kind of diseases like Alzheimer's and others, there's actually now programs of, hey, these are the signs and signals to recognize. There isn't anything out there in terms of widespread training around recognizing mental health issues or someone in crisis. That's what we need to do, is to educate our country on that, to help intercept people who are in need, again, to help them in day-to-day life, but for that small percentage that possibly could become violent, to stop them from hurting themselves or others.
Thanks, Tim. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question live, please stay on the line and you can leave us a voicemail message with your question. And again, if you'll pledge to have a conversation with a young person in your life on November 14th, please press 1. And if you'd like, press 2 if you'd like more information about Sandy Hook Promise.
So this is Mark. After my sweet little son Daniel was killed in his classroom, our oldest son James said, "I would like to prevent this from happening to other families. I would like to prevent another family from having to live through this." So I became involved with Sandy Hook Promise because I know that gun violence affects all of us and that we can all do something about it. So I'd like to say thank you to all of you for being with us tonight and for participating in this call. And I hope you'll join us for the first Promise Day on November 14th.
And this is Nicole. And again, like Mark just said, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this telephone town hall tonight. And we really hope that you're going to join us on Promise Day, November 14th, and take your first action to prevent gun violence in your community by having a conversation with a child or teen in your life about how to be a good bystander. We really feel that by coming together over the shared bond we all have, the love we have for children, that we can put aside any differences and work together to end violence.
Thanks for joining the call. Unfortunately, we could not get to every question. Say Something is one of the many programs and tools we offer to prevent gun violence. So sign up for Promise Day and you'll be the first to hear about this and more opportunities to get involved. And if you have additional questions, we want to hear from you. So you can stay on the line to leave us a voicemail message about why you want to have a conversation with your child or a child in your life about how to prevent gun violence, or let us know what you want to learn more about. We might share your message with the media or put it on our website or social media if you're sharing a story about why you want to participate. but we'll follow up with you directly. And if you'd like to find out more information about what we're doing at Sandy Hook Promise, or you're interested in becoming a part of Promise Day on November 14th, please visit www.promiseday.org. And thanks for your time. Have a great night.